Hey everyone, I'm back here with Glenn. Say hi, Glenn.
Hey, Glenn.
Perfect. And Glenn found another story, and we're gonna go check it out. I guess like they have like some pictures and stuff too down in this wash by Beaver Creek. So tell us like what's going on.
Okay, so there's a lady and her husband that lives down in on the weekends in a little RV park down on some private property, and in the fall, November, December, they've had encounters there where they've had things thrown at them, they've seen things, lots of encounter stuff going on. They've got some footprints, they've seen things walking around at night, and so we're going to go talk to them right now. I talked to them about 6 months ago or so. Last year, I talked to Abe, and he had his kids heard a weird scream, and so I went out like the next weekend and did some video and found a very interesting tree structure, which is also a new video that we have. I just haven't completed that video, but so this will be a pair to go together, and I really am excited to hear about what Sylvia and her husband both have got to tell. So we'll see what happens.
Awesome, there you have it. Well, let's go check it out.
Okay, hey, this is Glenn. Oscar and Sylvia and Oscar. We're down here kind of on Beaver Creek, just north of Penrose. And you guys have lived here now for 4 years. Okay. And you've had some curious stuff happen while you're out here.
Yes.
So let's kind of start from the beginning, and if you can, point by point, because you both have had some stuff happen over the years.
Yes.
But let's get started. So you've got campers and stuff down here. This is a little camping spot.
Yes.
You've had campers. You guys are living down here. You're down here on the weekends, as a general rule. Generally in the fall. Is that correct?
Well, we're here all year.
Okay.
Except my husband works out of town all the time, so I travel with him, and then we come back on the weekends, and if not, then every other weekend. But this is like our homestead at this point.
Okay, so you've been here for 4 years.
Yes.
What's the first thing that ever? Okay, so you've got deer, you got mountain lions, you got bears, you got all sorts of critters out here, turkeys, all sorts of stuff.
Mountain lions.
The creek over here
Yes.
runs occasionally.
Yeah. Run off
and stuff. So what's the first thing that happened that made you go, something's happening out here?
I guess at the beginning, when we first moved here, the flies, the stink, it smelled rotten, and it would fly. I mean, it was all over the air. And we've lived in the city all our lives, and when we moved here, I figured, we're in the country, of course there's going to be flies, but it was like a bad odor, and maybe I thought it was because there's tons of turkeys everywhere, but that was the first thing, that the flies, the odor, the smell, the rocks been thrown.
Okay, well,
So-
The rocks.
so
Yeah.
so now I want to drill down onto that. You say rocks being thrown. What do you mean rocks being thrown? Describe that.
Onto the side of the camper when we were laying there, or just
Something smacking the side of the camper.
Yes.
random.
What
throw
time of year would this be happening?
September,
Yeah, it was in the fall.
early
September,
September, and
October.
October. Yeah.
Okay, so and at night
Yes.
something would be hitting the camper.
Yes.
How consistently would that happen? I mean, what would you do?
It wasn't as often, but we did have several that
Yeah.
we went through, or we were in the containers and something just whacked the container from the side, and I'd run out there. By the time I come out there, I couldn't see anything.
So your camper, your containers, all that stuff is probably 20, 30 yards away from the creek.
Yes. We're
And
kinda
there's a
spread
little
out.
barbed wire fence right there. We'll show you what that looks like, but So it's a little distance
Yes.
from there, but you're really close to this creek, and that's a fairly thick, and it's thicker. It used to be thicker.
Oh, yes, yes.
We brought it down quite a bit.
Brought down quite a bit. Okay. So your initial weirdness was you had things smacking or hitting somehow or another, whether it's
In the
being
camper,
thrown or
in the
being smacked.
containers.
Yes.
Never at one or the other, you know. It was not directed at us.
It
Okay.
was at our camper
It was
where
just
we
random.
were inside.
Okay, and you were right over here
At
initially.
that time we were right here.
Yes.
Right here. Okay. So so that's your first thing. You know, it's just like, that's
When
something
we first
weird.
moved out here.
Yes.
And you know, so when you first moved out here, had anybody been living out here prior to that?
People would stay because we're into the truck driving. A lot of his friends
Okay.
have brought their trucks out here and stayed out here. They got full hookups here, so
Okay. Okay. So this is
but it was
kind of a camping spot.
yes,
Yeah.
not very often until
Okay.
I came. Then the rest showed up.
Okay.
So we've been the only permanent ones that have been here.
Yeah.
Some of these had come and gone and were here a week or two and then they'd leave, and then this was pretty much abandoned. When we got here, this was pretty much abandoned. We were the ones who came in here, and then other guys would come in, but they were work guys, you know, working with my husband, and then they
That
take
was
off.
mostly who was here.
But
Okay.
we were here permanently.
Okay. So you're here. You got a weird smell. You got the flies. You get this thumping. That must have scared the bejeebers out of you because you're
Yes.
out in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
To have the camper get hit. Now, was it just a little, like small pebbles, or was it
No.
something big?
It was big.
It was
You could
big.
hear it. Yeah. It scared
It had to be, I would say, golf size, if
little bit,
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean the
It was hard enough
yeah.
that you could tell.
And what would you do?
But first thing is jump out there and see if I can see something, and I never could.
I was thinking that it was something falling from the tree, or
We had limbs and branches. And
yeah.
Sure.
But it was like, how is that limb gonna turn around and go this way and hit you on the side of the camper?
So it was hitting the side because you're in
Yeah.
the camper. You could tell
yes.
Yes.
where it's hitting,
Oh, yeah.
and
It
it's
wasn't
hitting the
hitting on the
side.
top.
That was
Did it
never-
ever hit that side of the camper?
No, it was always.
It was
this way.
always from the creek
From
side of the
this
camper.
way.
Okay, that's kind of curious. So that was the first thing. How long and that happened in the first year or the first fall?
Yeah, I would say
Yes.
so.
Yes.
Okay, and then what? And then
My husband started cutting a bunch of the tree limbs and branches,
cleaning up the
and
place.
cleaning up and burning all the stuff here. The kids would come out enjoying the outdoors, and he had a pile of stuff that they would burn, and of course the ashes were pretty high, and that's when he went to work. I came out. I went back to. I had to go into town. There was another camper parked right where ours is right
Yes.
now, and the lady came knocking. I came home around 3, and in the morning I just left early, and I came back around 3, and she came knocking on my door, and she said, I need you to come out here and see something. And I said, what? And she said, here, come here. And she had 2 little dogs, and she was holding them, and she says, these dogs don't even want to go down. I can't put them down. And I'm thinking,
2 little Boston Terriers.
I said, why? She's like, they're peeing on themselves.
They were scared to death.
And they were scared. They don't even want to come out. And these dogs, you let them out, and they run all
fly
over
out
the
here.
place.
They didn't want to come out
and
for nothing.
She was holding them, and she says, they're peeing themselves, and I need you to come here. And she was standing right there, and I walked out, and
this is in the daytime,
yeah, this was around 3 o'clock.
about 3 in the afternoon.
Yes, and I came out, and I looked. Those were our stairs, and I looked, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's footprints everywhere. And my husband had just put new road base down, so it was freshly put down, and you could see the footprints where it'd been up there, not close to the camper, but maybe a good 2-3 feet away from the camper. But it had walked all around through here, stomping
In and
everywhere.
out of here.
All this.
In and out of this
It would leave a lot more prints going out.
Because it was stepping on all the ashes, so
And
it
walking
would
out.
and walking out, and we would walk around, and then at one point it had walked over to her house, and she said, I need you to come see this too. She's like, out of the sewer hose, something had bit into it,
Crushing.
and she said, my dogs at 3 o'clock in the morning were like going crazy, and it was just her and her husband, and she said, we didn't know what was going on, but that's when whatever was out there doing whatever, and the dogs were like going crazy. And she said in the morning when my husband left and he left, because they both worked at the same place, she said, I let the dogs go out, and they usually ran like crazy, and they peed right there, and then they ran inside, and she's like, I didn't know what was going on. She's like, and then as it started getting lighter, she's like, I came out, I'm like, what is going on with them? And she's like, that's when I saw that our hose had been bit into it.
Now, was this one of those is it one of those corrugated
Yes.
hoses?
Yes.
Yes. And she said, I looked.
It's pretty strong, and it crushed it. I mean,
Yeah.
you could tell it crushed it.
Oh, okay.
And she said, and I walked over and there was footprints headed this way. And that's when she said, I realized it was here. She said, did you hear anything? And I'm like, no, I don't remember.
So something had been walking around inside the fire pit.
Yes.
Inside the ashes, and then
Yes.
walking around leaving ash trails.
Yes.
Yes.
All the way back there to her camper, and then back here, all around here, and then it must have headed that way. Because the last footprint we saw was in that one rock, the one that's flat.
Uh-huh.
It stepped from about right there, and the next,
Jumped out.
it put a foot there, and the next foot was there. So I'm gonna have to say, what, it's about 4 feet, 5 feet from there to where it stepped. These rocks have not been moved.
And that's the photo you sent me.
Yes.
And so we'll include that in the video.
Yes. It stepped here, it put a foot here, and the next foot was here. And then it headed that way.
Do you have the tape measure?
Yeah, I do. You can grab that.
And this is the 15.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a
15
good.
Yes.
That's a good 6 foot stride.
Yeah, it's insane.
And there was leaves that had fallen. Like I said, it was in the fall.
I mean, if it went from,
Yeah, but right there.
so that's about 5 foot stride.
Yes.
That's insane.
There was no in between. It was
From-
like it went from there.
That's still warm. You guys had a fire last night.
All
Yes.
night, yeah.
It went from here, and the next footprint was there.
So, let me ask you this, because could it have gone right foot, left foot, then right foot leaving a footprint?
No, there was no, the pictures I took. There's no footprints here. There was footprints. All the footprints were like this, like one behind the other. This one, it seemed like he did whatever it was. It stepped here, and the next one automatically went over there. And as you can see, there's still some ashes.
Yeah, I just left those ashes
okay.
there.
That's where it was, from there
Okay.
to there. And then the next one was over there, and then it took off.
Wow. Okay. So, and you said you described these as about 15-inch long.
Yes. I didn't know what to do, and I'm like, I had nothing. I'd never experienced anything like this. So my kids were like, Mom, you need to go and get some clay and make a footprint, because it was still there. I'm like, don't anybody touch anything. I don't want anything. He brought some guys from over there, the landowner, and they were looking, and they're like, we think that might be a bear. And it's like, a bear does not have a foot this big. But they didn't want to scare me. I stayed here all by myself.
Yeah.
Sometimes she stayed. And they're like, it could be a bear. And I'm like, I've seen bear paws. These are not bear paws. So then one of the kids came over, and he's like, Jesus, Dad, this has toes. When I finally got the mold and I pulled it out, he was looking at it, and he said, there's toes on this foot. And when I measured it, it measured a little over 15 and a half. And the foot was super wide.
So that's 15.5 inches long right there.
Yes, and it was like wide this way, and it didn't have a little bit of a curvature. It was just like wide.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I pulled it out, I was a little disappointed because there had been leaves and stuff that had fallen under there. But that was the big imprint, and that's the picture I have.
Okay. Okay. So you've had this happen. Now, was this in the first year?
That was the first year we were
That was
here.
the first year
Yes.
you were here.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
So it happened right
We
away.
moved here in June,
Yeah.
June,
Yeah.
right, the first week of June, and we weren't used to any of this stuff, so we just assumed everything was fine. Like when you go to the woods or something, it's like, I don't know, but things like that started happening, and that scared the heck out of me.
When?
I believe it.
What month did this happen? Do you remember?
September.
September.
Was it September, October?
September, October,
Uh-huh.
something like that.
It's in the
Okay.
fall.
Later into the fall.
Yes, because some of the leaves had already fallen, so it had to have been late September into early October.
Okay, but the smacking against the camper, that started right away?
That started
Yeah,
like in
before,
July.
yeah.
In July. Okay.
July and August.
Yeah.
Okay, so that happened. What's the next significant event?
That happened, and then months went by, and we were gone. We go where my husband goes to work, and one day we came home, and he likes to do his little fire, and we had a lot of wood, and he had his truck parked there, and we were dropping off he was unloading all the wood, and I was just there walking, and he said, these are heavy, so I just walked around just looking, because he cleared out all the edge of the fence to see if anything crossed over we could have footprints, and he'd say, "You can go check the footprints. I'm right here." He never wanted me to go away from where he was, just in case I saw something.
Naturally. Yeah.
And he was unloading the stuff, and as he started unloading the stuff, I started walking around this edge just to see the clearing, if anything had come over, stepped into it. And as I ended up closer to this one tree, there's that other little tree that looks like it's been eaten by a beaver. And when we first got here, my husband had tons of leaves, and he would throw them over into the other side of the fence, and it looks like it's a tomb. Like, it's just piled up. It's just piled up of old leaves. So I started walking, and I know where he dropped all the leaves, and as I'm getting closer to the leaves, something was underneath the leaves, and it jumped up as I was getting closer, probably as far as like where you are from me, and I don't know how.
Yeah.
And it jumped up, and it was laying on the ground. Whatever it was laying on the ground. It was covered with leaves, and as I got closer, I didn't even know what I was looking for. I was just looking for the footprints, but I happened to look up, and it just moved, and leaves flew everywhere, and he headed that way, and I could hear it in the water, and I started screaming at Oscar, and I'm like, "Get over here!" I said, "Something was just jumped out of the leaves."
Yeah.
And he's like, "What?" He couldn't hear me, and I'm like, "Get over here!" I said. So he shut the truck off, shut it off, and he walked that way, but you could still hear it going through the water. But whatever it was staring at us.
Yeah.
And it was probably in the afternoon, like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
And it was usually the leaves as cover.
Yes, and it was covered. But as soon as I started getting closer, it either panicked or realized I was going to see that it was there, and it just jumped.
Now,
From
so
underneath the leaves.
so when it's underneath the leaves and the leaves explode, did you see anything?
I just saw something move that quick, and it was covered in leaves, and the leaves were flying all over the place, and it just, all I heard was the water, and I saw part of what was covered with leaves, but it was, I mean, there were still trees and stuff. That was pretty heavy in woods, so all I saw is what it moved like, and then I heard the splashing in the water.
Did it sound? So you saw nothing. When you saw the figure with leaves moving, how tall was this thing?
Probably about a little taller than me, and I'm not very tall. I'm like 5 foot.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
So
I bet that was
must have been
terrifying.
terrifying.
Yes, and he went over there, and he's like, "There's nothing," but we could still hear where it was in the water, but I couldn't see it.